We are back now at 8:43 with a trip inside the most dangerous place on earth, Mogadishu, Somalia. NBC's chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel, traveled there to take a look for himself. Richard, good morning to you.
Good morning, Matt. Somalia on the Horn of Africa is the world's worst failed state. It is also an al-Qaeda sanctuary that is attracting a surprising number of Americans.
Flying into Mogadishu isn't for the faint of heart. We arrived on African Express, one of only 2 airlines still operating in Somalia. It's soon clear why there are so few flights. Sitting on the runway is the wreckage of a crashed plane. It's a fitting first impression in this country, which hasn't had a functioning government in 19 years. As is baggage claim. It's anarchy. No belts, customs, or x-ray machines.
Just getting your bags is something of a free-for-all here.
Finally, we meet our hosts, African peacekeepers. There are about 5,000 peacekeepers in Somalia. Their mission is to try to prop up the Somali government, which is so weak it only controls a few square miles of Mogadishu. And in this lone pocket of authority is Somalia's version of the White House. It's the nicest building in town. But the U.S.-backed president, Sheikh Sharif Sheikh Ahmed, can't go much further than his palace gardens. What we need to do is build our institutions, he says, the basic framework of security and law and order. That's our first priority. It must be, because most of this large coastal city is controlled by the Shabab, a ruthless local branch of al-Qaeda. And most people here live in fear. Even at one of Mogadishu's only health clinics, among hundreds lining up for treatment, Fatma brought her 9-month-old daughter, Miski, but only after the girl's face had become covered with painful, infected boils. I almost never go outside, Fatma tells me. I'm too frightened. Like most Somalis, Fatma is afraid of the Shabab. The militants have made Somalia their newest safe haven, and in areas under their control imposed an unusually strict form of Islamic law. Women are stoned for adultery and must veil, but bras are forbidden. Calling gold un-Islamic too, the militants have ripped the fillings from people's teeth, banned music, movies, and even school bells. Anyone who can leave has left. There were 1.5 million people in this city a few years ago. Only 700,000 remain. Mogadishu today is the most war-torn, dilapidated city I've ever seen. But what's happening here is far worse than just all of these destroyed buildings. The majority of the militiamen terrorizing the city are under 16 years old. Teenagers empowered by the chaos to enter people's homes, lash women for dressing inappropriately, and chop off the limbs of accused thieves. Under a thorn tree, I meet 20-year-old Abdel Adi and Ismail Abdullah, 18. Both claim they were falsely accused of theft. Their punishment was amputation of the right hand and left foot. Their parents forced to watch. I tried to call out to my mother and say, "Please, somebody save me," Abdi says. One woman had a miscarriage as she watched, says Abdullah. The young men showed me how the Shabab stretched their wrists and ankles before slicing them off with a butcher's knife. But for Abdi, the punishment continued. He says militants returned 15 days later and sawed off more of his leg just to make him suffer. The leader put 3 fingers on me and said, "We have to cut off this much more," Abdi remembers. The U.S. military and intelligence services are aware of al-Qaeda's growing presence in Somalia, but there's little desire to come here to fight. In 1993, U.S. troops invaded Somalia to stop clan warfare that was causing mass starvation. American helicopters were shot down, and soldiers' bodies dragged through the streets. The events retold in the film, Black Hawk Down.
We got a Black Hawk down, we got a Black Hawk down.
Today, the U.S. involvement is mostly from afar. Washington backs the African peacekeepers in Somalia who tiptoe around the Shabab. Who is doing the fighting in these other areas. The peacekeepers' spokesman, Ugandan Major Barigi Bahoko, showed me on a map the Shabab neighborhoods, but says his troops don't go there.
We don't leave the main roads too much. This is the peacekeeping mission. You try as much as possible to minimize the casualties.
Peacekeepers say they don't have a mandate to fight the Shabab or enough troops to do it. But now, 17 years after Black Hawk Down, the United States is secretly increasing its involvement in Somalia, gathering intelligence under the cover of darkness. At night, we've been hearing the unmistakable sound of American drones circling in the sky over Mogadishu. They seem to be flying very low and make passes every 10 to 15 minutes.
There are drones flying over Mogadishu on a regular basis, really a nightly basis. I think that intelligence has its eyes peeled.
Eyes peeled because some of the Shabab's top commanders are American citizens, including a 26-year-old from Alabama named Omar Hamami. He's become one of the Shabab's leading recruiters of fellow Americans. Using internet videos,
gonna knock America down to her knees,
and rap songs,
establishing Allah's law.
Hamami has even attracted, for the first time ever, American suicide bombers. 17 peacekeepers were killed when this headquarters was attacked by a suicide bomber last September. But what happened here has direct ties to the United States. Militants identified the bomber as a Somali American who'd been living in Seattle. U.S. counterterrorism officials tell NBC News around 50 Americans, most of them of Somali origin, have come here to fight. The American connection has raised flags at both the FBI and CIA.
I think you could characterize this as a grade A problem. The reasons are simple. The number of times you get a substantial number of American kids, I don't care whether they're Somalis or whether they're a kid from Lincoln, Nebraska, traveling overseas to train with people who are connected with al-Qaeda in these kinds of numbers, that is very rare.
Rare and dangerous because the Shabab is expected to attract more fighters and more Americans as its safe haven grows in Somalia.
50 Americans, Matt, is a large number, especially in the world of terrorism where every individual matters.
That's an unsettling story, Richard. Thank you very much for bringing it to us. I appreciate it.